going to walk you through what this assignment will look like. We are starting off with our investigation. Now, every chapter will end with an investigation. We're not going to do all of them. We're already on chapter 2 on your online textbook. And while we don't really follow the materials inside of that book super duper strict, we do use some of them, and we're going to use this investigation. If we talk about what an investigation is, if I tell you that I'm going on an investigation, I might be searching for something, might be looking for something, might be trying to solve something. We're going to be doing that in this activity. And it takes place right here on this little tiny dot part of Minnesota. We live right about there here in St. Peter. And our story is going to take place right up over here. Our story starts in around 1946, 47. This is right after World War II ended. And we have a lot of servicemen and women coming back to Minneapolis after fighting in World War II. And a lot of these men and women who were fighting in World War II got checks to buy houses. And they decided to buy houses in this part of the state, which is called cabin country. It's about 2 hours north of Minneapolis. So a lot of the workers here in the cities could drive up on a Friday night and they could sleep in their cabins Friday night, Saturday night, and then Sunday they could get into their cars late Sunday evening, drive all the way back, and they'd be able to make a successful trip for the weekend. Well, one of the sites that they were going for is this lake, Lake Mille Lacs. It's a super large lake. It's large enough that if you're standing on one side, you can't see the shore on the other side of the lake. It's a very big lake. And there was one road to go up there. And this was a 2-lane road. One road going up, one lane coming back. And if you got stuck behind somebody on a slower car, you were stuck for a long time. And so a lot of people started complaining about how long it would take to get up to that cabin. And they wrote the state a lot of angry letters, and the state decided to make that road 2 lanes wide. So 2 lanes going up, 2 lanes going down. And that allows for you to pass safely and get from one lane to another. You're not stuck behind slow traffic. Well, as they were digging to make the road bigger, these construction workers came across a selection of bones. And these bones were not deer bones. The construction workers were hunters, and they were familiar with the bones that one might naturally find. If you and I go for enough walks in the woods, we'll come across some bones at some point, won't we? It's just kind of natural. And these construction workers were hunters, and they identified that the bones were not the normal bones that you might just come across in the woods. And they found out that they were human bones. Well, there's a law in Minnesota and in the US and in lots of parts of the country and the world where it says, you know what, if you come across human bones, you have to stop digging, because maybe it's the site of a crime, maybe it's a graveyard. It's disrespectful to start digging up human bones. So they called for somebody here from the University of Minnesota who came on up and started to look at those bones. But when this person got out of the car, instead of finding bones very exciting, this person found rocks very exciting. And they came across one specific rock that really got them very excited about what they found. And this rock is something called an anvil stone. And an anvil stone was used as an anvil. And the person who was looking at the human bones knew that an anvil stone was used by very ancient Minnesotans. And so they got very excited about the possibility that maybe right here, this site was a site that was important to ancient Minnesotans. So they stopped digging and they started investigating Bradbury Brook. They dated the site to 7,212 BCE. And so we add 2021 to get to about 9,000 years ago from us. Your goal is to complete this graphic organizer, and you'll be doing that on Google Classroom. It's going to have a link to the example. You are going to be right about here. You'll see that there's a digital copy of the graphic organizer, and that graphic organizer brings you out to this. You'll see the instructions within it, and I've got links to both the pages on the online textbook here and then the regular textbook. Since we're doing this distantly, we're going to use this online textbook. And you'll see there's a map on page 2.18 to get to some of these different answers. When you're completing this activity, we want to make sure that we're using complete sentences. And I'm going to walk through some of these questions so that we know exactly how to do it. On the textbook, it lists 4 items. And what I'd like to know is, what are those 4 items that they found at the Bradbury Brook site? You can think about these items as ingredients to a cake. And these 4 ingredients that you list here are all used for one activity here. So we're going to list our 4 activities. And if we were making a cake, we might say eggs, flour, baking soda, and water. And then this question wants to know, how do we relate these artifacts to each other? So I would say, well, they relate because they all make a cake. When you're looking through these items that were found on Bradbury Brook, you'll say, how does this relate to each other? Okay, well, these items helped ancient Minnesotans to all do this. So these 2 questions are wondering, what do you find and what do they relate to? Your 3rd question wants to know what type of shape the stones were found when they discovered all of these stones. And the anthropologist was going through this, what types of shape did they find? Question 4, 5, 4, I've already lost track. Talks about what they might have been doing. So we're gonna figure this one out. If you come to my apartment, you would see in a corner that there's a yoga mat, there's some weights, there's a little tiny speaker, and there's a water bottle. Well, you could look around and you could say, in that corner, Mr. Gemming does yoga. So here, we're going to look back to that cake example. What activity did we think they're doing? And what might they have then been doing at that site? Okay, all of these items here allow you to create something. And then what might you have been using that for? This goes for our time sweep question. We used our CE notation, which to get to a CE notation, we have to understand how to use this BCE notation. And this relates to our activity that we did last week. And what were the people like? Were they mainly a grassland or woodland culture? This allows you to look back at all of the things that you've read within the document, and it wonders, what did they do using all of this information and all of their materials? If you find that there's a lot of wood, maybe they're a woodland culture because they have access to trees and to forest. Or maybe you're looking through the materials and you don't see very much wood, but you see lots of grasses. Maybe you might argue that they're a grassland culture because they would have not used materials that were not around their area. Here's the Bradbury Brook activity. You'll use your online textbook. You'll use this presentation, and it will allow you to go through and complete the activity successfully. Now, if you're doing this distantly, we are not creating a map. That is not part of our distance activity. I'm going to stop this recording because that's the end of the instructions for this activity.